Vav, Hashem says to Yaakov, Hine anochi imoch, I am with you. So the Ramban had explained earlier, when Hashem said, Hine anochi imoch, from this point onward, Yaakov does not need protection from Malachim. Although it says, Ma'alochav yitzav lo chishmorcho, Hashem gives the order that the angel should protect the person. He says that's other tzaddikim. Yaakov's, due to his level of relation with Hashem, Anoch imoch, I will always be with you. That means I will never be detached from you. He doesn't have to be, he needs protection from no one, not even an angel. Ushmarticho, and I will watch over you. B'chol asher telech, v'ashivosicha la'adom hazos, and I will bring you back to this Adomo. It doesn't say El Oretz Hazos. We find that when Yaakov came back after 36 years and he purchased property in Shechem, he says, V'yovo Yaakov Sholem. In next week's reading, he came back whole. So if you take a look there, Rashi cites the Chazal, the Midrash, Sholem Begufo. Remember, he fought with the angel, and he had a dislocation of the hip. He was fully healed in his physical sense. Sholem B'Toroso, and he was complete in his Torah. That although he was in such an environment, with the levels of distraction and his degree of obligation to love on, as a shepherd, and as he explained, that his eyes wandered from sleep, and how he froze at night, and how he was scorched during the daytime, he was sholem b'Toroso. His Torah was intact. He did not forget any of the Torah. Vashivosuch el Adom hazos. What did we say always? What is Adoma? Adoma always connotes spiritual growth. That means I will bring you back fully intact to this Adoma. Meaning, this is Kol Ador B'chutz L'Oretz Kelo Aloka. The location of Avodah is in Eretz Yisrael, as we said, because there's no archangel. I will bring you back to this Adoma that you'll be able to do the service as you did the service before you left. Kilo Azovcho. I will not abandon you. Arasher Asisi. Until I do what I spoke to you. So over here, there's an interesting midrash. There's a question. Everything Yaakov asked, did Hashem respond? Or maybe one thing he did not respond. So there's one opinion, midrash says, he asked for protection, he asked for clothing, that he should always have clothing to cover his nakedness, and he asked for livelihood. He should always have lechem lechol. He should have the staple to sustain himself. So one opinion midrash is that everything he responded yes, except for the livelihood. Why? Because if Hashem would guarantee him on everything, what would he have to pray for? So therefore Hashem, on one thing, did not respond, and that means that's up to you. It depends on you, where you're at. You have to supplicate me for that. The Chacham say no. Because normally it says, Lo ezovcha, we say, David HaMelech says, Lo risi tzadik nezov v'zar b'vakish lochem, right? At the end of Bichas HaMozon. David HaMelech says, Lo risi tzadik nezov. I've never seen an abandoned tzaddik, v'zaro b'vakish lochem. And his progeny are seeking out bread. So the Chacham say, so we see even regarding the staple, he's guaranteeing him on even the lechem lechol. Meaning Yaakov does not need reason to have a relation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So even on the most basic need, which is the staple of life, which is bread, even that he guaranteed him. But the first opinion, I think it's Rav Acha, and the Midrash says, no, that even Yaakov Avinu, Hashem had to withhold one thing, so he should supplicate Hashem to what? To provide that. It's very interesting. In the Midbar, every material need was provided by Hashem. The Anei HaKavod provided protection from the elements. It actually cleansed their clothing. The clothing grew on their bodies. Their feet did not swell. As the Torah says explicitly, the man every morning, day in and day out, fell at the same time. They just had to go out and collect it. Water was provided. And the man sustained them at whatever level they had thought. The man took on that level of nourishment. So what was the midbar? The midbar was every level that need that a human being has was provided in the midbar. Shmarticha, I will watch over you, I will provide for you. So what is Rav Acha saying? Well, if Yaakov would have been guaranteed even on the lechem, what would he have to supplicate Hashem for? What would he have to supplicate Hashem for? Therefore, the Chum said we disagree, because Hashem says, Ki lo azovcha, I will not abandon you, meaning you'll never be zar mavakish lochim. You're guaranteed you will not be abandoned, meaning you will have even the lechem, I guarantee. Why is that different than the midbar? We're in the midbar for all these years, 40 years, and we had the lechem, we had the man. So how does Rav Acha differentiate between Yaakov now and the man? Okay? There's a concept which we're going to have in Rosh Hashanah and Daf Yomi. There's a concept known as Ein Shvus B'Mikdash. That rabbinical fences do not apply in the Beis HaMikdash itself. Ein Shvus B'Mikdash. So what we're concerned of outside the Beis HaMikdash, you need a fence. In the Beis HaMikdash, rabbinic fences don't apply. Why? What is the reason? So Rashi explains, what is the need of a fence? Let's say you're riding on a road. What do you need a guardrail? Because a human being doesn't always have full cognizance of every moment that he's engaged. So if a person has a lapse of focus, the car could veer, and if you don't have the guardrail, which is the fence, you go off the road. When you stood in the Beis HaMikdash, the sense of Hashem's presence was so overwhelming to the person, there was not a moment of lapse of attention. So therefore the concept of fence, a rabbinic fence, is not necessary, because there's always that cognizance of where you're at and what your responsibility is. That's Ein Shvus B'Mikdash. In the Midbar, in the desert, where we had the Anei HaKavod, and we had the Be'er Shel Miriam, and you had Moshe Rabbeinu, and you had the Mishkan. There you were in the Mikdash. You felt the presence of Hashem continuously, and you had the cloud that led you. If that's the case, even Rab Chanan agrees. But where was Yaakov at this point? Yaakov was in the home of Lavan. You couldn't have a more negative environment trying to undermine what Yaakov was all about. So Yaakov, Rav Chanan is of the opinion, he needed that lack. He needed to be lacking to supplicate Hashem to guarantee that level of attachment. That's how Rav Chanan would differentiate between Yaakov's predicament in Choron, in the community of Lavan, and the Jews in the Midbar. In the Midbar, we don't need to supplicate Hashem to retain and maintain that cognizance. In the home of Lavan, where everything was the antithesis of that, Yaakov needed the basic attachment, which was based upon the staple of life. So when he said, to guarantee me livelihood, he's of the opinion Hashem did not respond. The Chum said we disagree. Yaakov didn't have to supplicate for livelihood, because Lo Azovcha means even that I will provide. The answer is because Yaakov himself, and because he said, Ushmarticha, he says, Anochi Imoch. Wherever Yaakov is, he's the Merkava. So if he is the location of the Shekhinah, he's always in the Kodesh Kadoshim. Being in the Kodesh Kadoshim, there's never a moment you actually have a lapse and you're not cognizant of Hashem's presence. Therefore, Hashem even responded to the basic amenity, which is food, and therefore they disagree. So that's the question. Do we differentiate between Yaakov's situation in the Choron? It's different than being within the Anei HaKavod, which is being in the equivalent of in the Beis HaMikdash, or no? Chacham say it's the same thing. Yaakov was always in the Kodesh Kadoshim. It's not necessary. Chonet said it's not simple because you have all this negative environment trying to pull him away from that. We find that Yaakov says, next week's reading, when he sends the message to Esav, he says, Im Lovon Garti. Garti are the same letters as Taryag. Taryag, Im Lovon Garti v'Taryag mitzvah shomarti. Rashi cites the Chazal, that although I was in Lovon, it was the most negative environment, Taryag mitzvah shomarti. I kept the 613 mitzvos, v'lamadati masav haroim. Not only did I keep it, I was at a level of understanding I did not learn from his evil ways. So it seems to be redundant. If you kept the Taryag mitzvahs, of course you don't learn from his evil ways. The answer is that even a person keeps mitzvahs, when you see certain things at a certain level, there is a yearning for that, except you suppress it. There was never a moment that I even considered even at any level, to have any association or want or need for whatever Lavan represented. That's the reason is because since Yaakov himself always had that level of attachment to God, that he was the Merkava, when you have that level of clarity, you see things for what they are, and anything Lavan represented was the most extreme level of evil. It was like understanding you walking into an inferno. Therefore, that's it's not redundant. Taryag mitzvah shamarti, v'lo marti mimasav roim. I did not learn from his evil ways, meaning there was no way I wasn't tinged or had any interest ever to consider that I ever had to suppress myself not to go and do anything that was represented by Lavan. Alan.